Okay. Not much to like from this game, but, trying to find just a few crumbs. I like Chris Rodriguez. I thought Chris Rodriguez was good last night. 12 carries, 65 yards. I know a lot of it, came with the score completely out of hand. Some of it came in the fourth quarter against Seattle. They had taken their foot off the pedal long before some of these yards, even had some backups into the game. I saw Leonard Williams and a couple of the other guys sitting on the sideline for a portion of the fourth quarter. But I've always liked the way that Chris Rodriguez runs. I loved the third and one in the third quarter, I think it was. I mean, he took that thing and just pounded it in there. He's a guy that always seems to get 3 when he should have gotten nothing, 4 or 5 when he should have gotten 1 or 2. I don't see much difference between Rodriguez and Krosky Merritt. I really don't. I'd probably give Rodriguez a lot of opportunities. I like Krosky Merritt's ability and vision, but obviously, the I hope we've moved on from he's obviously the steal of the draft kind of a discussion. Chris Rodriguez on the list of things that I liked, as was Tress Way. This is like the old days. Like there was a stretch there, 2023, 2019, 2018. Like, Tress Way's on the list. Terry McLaurin's on the list. I think every single week during those losing seasons from 2018 on, it was a guaranteed Terry was going to be on the list and Tress Way was going to be on the list. 4 punts last night, all of them inside the 20-yard line, a 47.8 yard per average, but also a 47.8 net on the night because none of those punts were returned. All right, Tress. He's a good punter, man. Always has been. Jeremy Reeves. I have no idea where he'll grade out. I just know this. He loves football. He loves to hit. And last night, I thought, unlike Monday night, he was one of the only guys that seemed to have the level of urgency that they had Monday night at Arrowhead. That's it. That's the good list. I'm not going to put on the good list the defense in the second half. No. They held Seattle to 7 points. They forced some punts, got a pick, which was a gift from Darnold. The Seahawks just weren't playing the second half with anywhere near the same urgency because they did not have to. They were winning 31-7 and then 38-7. So no real credit for the second half defense, even though it was a little bit better, but who cares? The major damage had been done. I mean, and the details of how it was done to them in the first half coming up, and they are gory. Move on to the much longer list of the things that were bad from the game. So I'll just, once again reiterate, number one for me is Jaden's injury. I think it was malpractice, coaching malpractice to have him in the game. Many times, and I've said this, over the years, and some of you, were like, oh my God, this is a change for you, Sheehan. It is a bit of a change. More times than not, I'm okay, with fighting it out, competing till the end. But the circumstances, the context around this is just completely different. He comes into the game injured. He's got a limited supporting cast. He's under duress at the highest levels that he's ever been at in his career. He's, running every second or third play. He's getting sacked. Like, stop. It's 31 points is the lead. There's zero chance. The game was off the board, I bet, at that point. You just don't, you don't come back from that. There was no gain, no upside. Like I'm waiting for the person to say, well, he's had some rust because he hasn't played that much. He played 3 quarters in the game. Fine. We'll knock the rust off with the 3 quarters. That's enough for tonight. It was legitimately preseason football-esque in the fourth quarter. Seattle pulling starters. The last play of the third quarter was it for me. He got sacked. The clock ran out. It was 4th down. They come back and they've got Tress Way. They're not even thinking about going for it. Down 38-7. I'm like, no, that's it. Call it a night. Tweeted it out. As many of you did. It was obvious. Come on, Mariota. Take let's get you warmed up. We're going to get you into the game and protect you too. We're going to run the ball and punt a lot in the fourth quarter and get the hell out of Dodge. So number one on the list of things that I didn't like is, again, to me, the headline out of this was, it's I guess you could nicely describe it as careless. You could harshly describe it as dereliction of duty. Okay? Malpractice, I don't know, is that somewhere in between? That's where I am. But I'm pissed. I can't believe they didn't feel that or see that. I did not think this team was ready like they were on Monday night, and that has been a hallmark of Quinn teams here. He's right when he says the culture isn't the issue here. It is the limitations of the players that they have and the limitations of the backups and the backups to the backups, which they've now been forced to play because they have been, absolutely decimated by the injury bug this year. But Monday night was like, hey, man, they came out. They gave it all they had. Like there was a level of energy, a level of compete that you expect. And I didn't feel it last night. I didn't think it was the same level. I mean, I thought Reeves was flying around. Love him. Jaden didn't play on Monday night, and he looked spry. He actually looked great, from a running standpoint. He didn't look – I thought he looked quick. I thought he looked, quick reaction-wise. But, it just was not the same overall vibe that they had on Monday night. And then on top of that, outrageously sloppy and destructive, self-destructive with the penalties, et cetera, in the first half. The intense urgency that was there on Monday night was not there. I didn't feel last night. I knew they were at a disadvantage when their defense was on the field. If you watched any of Seattle coming into the game, you knew that was going to be a problem. But, it's like, the old cliche coaches always use, if you're going to make a mistake, make it at full speed. They were indecisive, and I felt like not making mistakes at full speed like they did on Monday night. That leads me just specifically to the goriness of what the defense offered up last night. It's about as bad as it gets. As I said, right now in this moment, I think they're the worst defense in the NFL. Cincinnati's close. Dallas is probably a little bit better than we are right now. Cincinnati, Washington. I mean, Cincinnati gave up 47 to Chicago, 39 to the Jets. So maybe it's Cincinnati won Washington too. But you can't get any worse than they were in the first half last night. First of all, they can't cover. That's been obvious all year long. Zone doesn't matter. Man doesn't matter. They just don't have, anybody that can cover man-to-man, and they seem to be more often than not a bit soft and a bit confused in zone coverage. And then the lack of execution on the back end in coverage is made up for with zero pass rush. I mean, they have no pass rush right now. Losing Dorrance Armstrong was a big deal to that, no doubt. They, at times this year, had, a quasi-decent pass rush. Again, if we go back, weeks, it's like, yeah, but it was against the Giants and Russell Wilson. Yeah, but it was against the Raiders and Geno Smith. And that was clearly a clue that, let's hesitate before we start anointing this defense. But can't cover, can't get a pass rush, can't stop the run consistently. They don't get takeaways unless the other team just hands them one like Darnold did last night. They don't tackle well. I mean, last night, I'm not sure tackling was the major issue it's been in some games. On that one touchdown on the sideline, it was with Quan Martin. They often are confused, before big snaps, third down snaps. The touchdown that made it 14-0, you could see how confused they seemed to be pre-snap. I mean, the first half last night was all-time horrendous. Seattle scored 5 times on 5 drives, 31 points, 330 yards in a half, 5 for 5 on third down. None of it was difficult. It was all easy pitch and catch. Darnold himself had one of the greatest first halves in the history of the game. Literal perfection. 16 of 16 for 282, 4 touchdowns, no picks, no sacks, a perfect 158.3 passer rating. I saw this stat per Next Gen. In the first half, 8 for 8 for 191 yards and 4 touchdown passes of 10 or more air yards, tied for the most such TDs in any half in the Next Gen stats era. Darnold himself was pressured on a career low 12.5% of his dropbacks and went 18 of 21 for 294 touchdowns and an interception when kept clean, which at 12.5%, that would mean that 87.5% of the time he was kept clean. Yeah, I mean, it was just so easy. We talked about Smith and the Jigba coming into this game. Uncheckable. It doesn't matter what they did. They didn't even have their number 2 receiver, Cooper Kupp, last night. Didn't have him. The touchdown pass to Horton that made it 14-0 on the 3rd and 8, that was the one in which I think I just referred to it, looked like total mass confusion pre-snap. Yes, of course, injuries are a reality. They are an injured group. They are a shell of what they wanted this team to be on the field before the season started. Armstrong, Wise, Harris, the list goes on. Now Lattimore, Quan Martin was out of the game, came back. Trey Amos was out of the game, came back. But man, it's ugly, and it's not going to get any better. They would literally need, their opponents to crap themselves over and over again just to look close to average. I would imagine major changes are coming in the offseason at the latest. And I just can't imagine that Joe Witt Jr. is back next year. I don't even know if he's the problem, if he's responsible for any of this. But the bottom line is 29 games as the team's defensive coordinator, and the defense has been hot garbage in 22 of the 29. Next on the list, the offense. 3 things about the offense last night. It was limited, clearly, by the players they had on the field. I thought the plan was too ambitious early, and I didn't like the plan from Cliff. And then the offense penalized itself out of any real opportunities to get any sort of production. So the limitations, obviously, Debo was out there, Ertz was out there, everything else after McCaffrey went out was hodgepodge, guys off practice squads, Chris, Moore and Treylon Burks, who I haven't even seen the snap counts. How many snaps did Treylon Burks play? 13 was out there a bunch. Had a nice catch on the sideline. So they were limited. They're even limited at running back right now. They really are. I mean, I'd try Rodriguez more. So limited. I did not like the plan last night from this standpoint. I thought it was way too ambitious early, considering the opponent and the limitations, skill position wise. Too many dropbacks. 9 of the first 10 pass plays were called pass plays. Even those with him under center, there was some under center boot and play action. Didn't work very well. Not enough quick game. I talked about this on Friday. It's got to be quick. Got to be out. We got to get it. It's going to be a lot of line of scrimmage, run extension throws, because it was very clear that Cliff did not think he could run the football against the number 1 rush defense in the NFL. And I thought he might come to that conclusion. But where was the quick game? Where were the screens? Look, the deficit got out of control so quickly. It was 21-0 before we blinked, 28-0 before we blinked twice. So I don't even know what the plan was after that. But it's like, Nine out of the first 10 plays were called pass plays. Again, I'm okay with the run extension throws, the quick screens, the bubbles. They threw a couple to Debo, quick game, super quick. And they got quick game into it late when the game was over. I didn't love the plan. What is he working with? Not a lot. Understand that the clay that he has been given to mold the offense into something is pretty rank in the overall texture and smell. Penalties, they killed this team early in the game when it was very obvious after the opening drive of the game, which went 90 or whatever it was, 85 plays, 9 minutes. And it was very obvious that offensively, they were going to have to keep up. And so let's go through the first 3 drives of the game. First drive, right? After a first down, By the way, they opened with the ball, right? They won the toss and took the football. So after a first down, balls at their own 42, we get the blindside block by Biotish. 15 yards, 2nd and 25. Forget about it with what they have on the field, 2nd and 25 against that opponent. Drive killer number 1, 15-yard penalty on the opening drive. Drive number 2, they're on the move. 2 first downs. They're at the Seattle 40-yard line. It's 3rd and 2, and Jaden takes off for a really big-time scramble, moving the chains, gets out of bounds 6-7 yards. Woo! We're at the Seattle 32-yard line. Let's go. But no, face mask, Chris Paul. 15 yards. Now it's 3rd and 17 back at their own 45. Next play, Jaden trying to make something happen, forces one. It gets picked on the sideline. Excellent interception, but also, a heave up into the air, hoping that Jalen Lane would come down. Jalen Lane's not your, contested catch guy. We should know that by now. So penalty, Chris Paul's 15-yarder. Drive killer on drive number 2. Drive number 3, it's 4th and 1. They're down 28-0 because Jalen Lane had fumbled the kickoff, and they had scored quickly after that. God, the scores, they were pretty quick. And Quinn rolls the dice from his own 29. That's fine. It's 4th and less than a yard. And Jaden's off to the races on a quarterback keeper. Ertz, illegal motion, false start, whatever it was, 4th and 6, they got a punt. First 3 drives, 3 penalties that derailed those drives on a night in which you could not do that to yourself and have any chance. You couldn't do it against Dallas, and you did it. You couldn't do it against Kansas City, and you did it, with the turnovers and the turnover in the opening drive, because they were pretty clean elsewhere. But you had to be flawless. No penalties, no drops, no turnovers. And 3 devastating drive-killing penalties on the first 3 offensive drives. Look, I'm not about to make the case that without those penalties, they would have won the game. They wouldn't have. Their defense is just so helpless right now. And Seattle's that good. They're just a much better team. But their only chance for the game to be a game was with their offense and with the limitations they had at receiver in particular. That meant they could not self-destruct. No room for self-destruction in the first 3 drives, 3 penalties, 2 of them 15 yards, killers. Also on the list of things I didn't like, there were a couple more drops last night. Bates, if we think back to last year, has a bit of a drop problem. I mean, he missed out on a beautiful, I don't know if that was an RPO or just play action, but it was a, big chunk. That was going to be a 15 to 20-yard play. Dropped it. Who had the other drop? Did Jalen Lane have the other one? I forget. Pass protection in the game. The all-22 will reveal if Jaden on occasion was, especially in the long down and distance moments where he's trying to get, hang on for a little bit longer because you can't check down on 3rd and 17. Whether or not it was as bad as the next-gen stats indicate, but a 55% pressure rate by the Seahawks through 3 quarters is not a pleasing number. I mean, I wrote down constantly under siege immediately. Look, the play got hurt on under siege quickly. It seemed like, half, if not 2 out of 3 dropbacks were influenced by pass rush. What else is on this list? Just the penalties overall, 8 for 87. And look, I think Seattle declined 2 or 3 of them. There was a DPI on Amos on a touchdown that was declined, obviously. The penalties that were most frustrating to me are the pre-snap penalties. Ertz, in particular, seemed to lack the concentration last night. He had 2 pre-snap penalties, and they were big ones. The timeouts that they were taking, it wasn't going to matter last night. It's not like they were going to need him on defense at the end of a close game. But, man, the whole operation last night was just discombobulated, and they just took too many timeouts in spots where you can't take timeouts. The turnovers, Jalen Lane on the kickoff return, Jaden's 3rd and 17. There you go. That's the list of bad from last night.